Welcome to the What I Wish I Knew After Pregnancy Loss podcast. I am your host, Sharna Southan. I am an angel mum, a rainbow mum, a pregnancy loss practitioner, and trauma-informed coach. I created the Institute of Healing Through Pregnancy Loss out of my own experience with loss in the hopes to provide understanding and healing, educating people on pregnancy loss, and creating more women or men in trained support roles. In this podcast, I hope to shed light on what I wish I knew in relation to pregnancy loss, opening up the conversation, breaking the stigma, and bringing real life stories plus guest experts. Thank you for being here with me today, and let's dive into today's episode. Welcome, beautiful souls, to the What I Wish I Knew After Pregnancy Loss podcast. Today, I have with me Sarah Willoughby. Sarah is a transformation coach, fertility coach, speaker, and best-selling author with a background in corporate human resources. She draws on her challenging journey to self-love through PCOS, secondary infertility, multiple miscarriages, grief, IVF, OHSS, ICU, and immigration to guide women in reconnecting with their inner selves. Through her powerful message of resilience and well-being prioritization, Sarah empowers women to heal, face their fears, and embrace their true potential to consciously create the lives they deserve and welcome healthy babies into the world. As the author of Infertility Saved My Life, Sarah chronicles her remarkable story of resilience and triumph over a life-threatening IVF cycle and the creation of a heart-centered life and business in Australia. Today, Sarah cherishes moments in nature alongside her greatest teachers, her three beautiful children. Thank you so much for joining us, Sarah.
Thank you, Sharna. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Me too. We have connected so many times. I don't know, I'd like to say over the past couple of years, but maybe I
Yes,
might
yeah.
have. My timeline is, I'm really terrible with timelines. So could say a couple of years, which could mean anything. But and I'm so excited to be able to have just you in this space right now and really just dive into everything about you, everything that you have created, but also everything that has, brought you to this place. So did you want to share your story and how it all came about?
Yeah, thank you. So I grew up in the UK. So as I start to talk, you'll hear a bit of a mixture of accents, which confuses people. And I spent 6 years at university and I followed the corporate path and I felt like I was doing all the right things. My soul was not happy. I felt an inner conflict, but I didn't know how to leave. And at the same time, I was going on this crazy journey through secondary infertility, trying to complete my family. So I'd already had a beautiful little boy, and everything was fine with that, conceived really easily and quickly, pretty much on my honeymoon, just after I got back from my honeymoon. And even though I had PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, I thought, well, I've already conceived, everything could be fine, there'll be no issues. But that wasn't what eventuated for me, and I wasn't really prepared for that. So I'd had my beautiful little boy. He was born 2 months prematurely, but apart from that, everything was good. And then trying to have a second child just took me on this crazy journey through a lot of loss and grief and trauma. And I was having this constant battle at work of wanting to leave work, but wanting to stay in this job that was going to pay me well to go on maternity leave to be able to nurture this beautiful family that I was trying to create. And through that journey, I eventually emigrated over here to Australia and began a new life. But obviously, there's a lot that happened in the middle of all of that, which I'm happy to dive into.
Yeah, actually, so much of what you just said resonated with me too. I was in a job role that I loved, but a workplace that was very toxic. And I obviously you keep going back because there's that you feel like that's the only option for you. But I was also trying to go through my fertility journey, and it wasn't until the miscarriage that it was almost like the universe kind of slapping me in the face and going, no, no, this is not for you. This is not your path. You have something else. So yeah, you obviously have gone through a hell of a lot in your fertility journey that probably, like you said just before we started recording, is a little bit more on the rarer side too. So you actually, not only did you experience secondary infertility and miscarriages, you also experienced, I'm going to say it, ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome. So did you want to, I guess, share how that happened, what that is, give us a little bit of insight into that part of your story?
Sure. So I'd been trying to conceive again. It took me a long time to conceive. I ended up having a miscarriage, and I was absolutely devastated. I wasn't prepared for that. I had thought that I'd gone through so much and then I was going to have this beautiful baby and that everything would be okay. And it just wasn't. And I was heartbroken. And obviously you work in the space of loss, and I would just want to highlight to anybody who's going through a miscarriage or anybody who's had a miscarriage the importance for me of grieving that loss. And I was very, very blessed that when I went into hospital to have a D&C, because my body was still thinking I was pregnant and was still producing all the hormones and I was still growing, and I just really wanted it all to end. So I opted to go into hospital to have a D&C, but I found it very confronting. And after the surgery, one of the nurses realized I was really upset and she called the chaplain to come and speak to me. And so I was very blessed to be offered a proper funeral service for my little baby. And that really, really helped me in
Mm,
that process. And I just wanted to highlight that before I sort of go into the rest of the story about how important it is to honor the
mm.
baby that we were so excited to be welcoming into the world. And I know that you understand that journey as well.
Yeah, I had a missed miscarriage as well, and but I didn't get that reception. I didn't get that support. So, but I do like exactly the same way. I want to echo what you just said as well. The importance of healing and processing that loss. However you find that, if the hospital can offer that to you, then that's amazing. If it doesn't, it doesn't mean that you can't heal from that. It doesn't mean that you can't do anything. It just means that you have to look outside of yourself and go, okay, what is available to me? What can I do? And that was what I had to do. Yeah, it's very, very, very important point to bring up, especially when you're going into another, I guess, fertility path, another like trying to conceive. It's very important to honor and help your body process that loss.
Yes, and I think it wasn't until I'd had my second miscarriage that I didn't have that offered to me that I realized the importance of doing that for myself. So I agree with you that there are so many different ways that we can grieve and come to a place of acceptance, whether it's planting a tree in your garden, writing a poem, letting off a balloon, whatever it is that helps you to feel like you're able to sort of let go and come to that place of acceptance. So after I'd had my first miscarriage, which really rocked my world, I ended up back in the hospital medical system trying to figure out what was going on with my body. It was a bit of a disastrous process. I got sent to the wrong part of the hospital. I got sent to gynecology instead of fertility, even though that had been my referral. And lots of things went wrong in that journey, and I felt very deflated. And we eventually got to a point where we were advised that really the only option for us was to go through IVF, but we were going to have to wait a long time to have that first appointment because we'd been referred to the wrong department. And so I made the decision that if I was going to have to go through IVF, which, as we know, is expensive, it's an emotional roller coaster. You often don't see the same people each time. Certainly, that was my experience in the UK. I wanted to take some of that stress and pressure out of it. So I ended up booking what I thought was going to be a holiday while I was going through the 2 week wait to try to take that stress out of it. And it turned into anything but a holiday. So I went over to Norway, had the retrieval, which was very painful, actually. I wasn't put under for that, which in the UK you are. And that was very painful. And I'd done all this hypnotherapy before, which was really helpful in just calming my nervous system down when I was being prodded and poked. But my body just did not like the drugs. And my ovaries overstimulated and then they hyperstimulated, which is really rare. So if anybody's going through IVF, I don't want you to panic. This is something that happens in very few cases. But because I was under 35 and I also had PCOS, I was at an increased risk, but they still didn't feel like it was a big risk. And my body just started to fill up with fluid. And I went from being like a size 6 to looking like I was 7 months pregnant in about 48 hours. The fluid then starts to leak in around your organs and around your body. It's absolutely excruciating. So the fluid ended up in my lungs. I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was drowning. My kidneys stopped working. I then was sent for a scan to find out whether I had heart failure. And it was at that point that I was like, what have I done? I've chosen to put myself through this elective procedure, albeit there's millions of women that have been through it, millions of babies have been born since Louise Brown in 1978. But I felt guilt, I felt shame, and I had to watch my 3-year-old son walk out of the hospital doors with his grandma to return home to the UK because there was nothing the doctors could do to stop my deterioration. They could only treat each symptom as it arose. And being in ICU is just very confronting. It was just this fog, this haze of beeping machines and coming in and out of consciousness and just the pain. Morphine did nothing to take the edge off the pain. And I really felt like if this is it, if this is how I die, have I lived my best life? Have I just been greedy? Have I not appreciated my beautiful son? I've wanted more. So there were lots of emotions going on in that journey, but that's sort of the peak of the story. And also in the hospital bed that I ended up in after I came out of ICU, it was an abortion ward. So I was surrounded by this sort of roller coaster emotional ride of women and girls coming in and having the day procedure. And it was pretty, I'm not going to share how graphic it is. I've shared that in my book. It's pretty confronting, but that was really hard for me to actually see that every day, to witness what was going on. No judgment at all in completely different stages of life. But the irony wasn't lost on me that there was me desperately trying to have another baby, looking like I was heavily pregnant. And there was just this sea of girls coming in every day to, terminate their pregnancies. And I was like, wow, there's no sensitivity here to that. So that was pretty challenging.
My goodness, that what you just shared gave me goosebumps. I could only imagine what would have been going through your mind, especially when you're also then watching your son walk out the doors, not knowing whether or not you'd see him again, because you're feeling so out of control with what was actually coming for you. And if they're only able to work with, and heal, or, not heal, but I've just had a complete mind blank for words.
Treat the symptoms. They could only just deal with everything because it came up.
Yeah. So there's no sense of like, okay, I'm getting on top of this. Do you want to share the moments afterwards, like maybe like when you were starting to maybe feel like you were starting to get your health back, and like you said also, you're in the depths of this darkness that makes you question whether or not you have actually done what you wanted with your life. So again, it shifts everything for you in that moment, like your whole world just like, whoa, if I get out of this is going to change. Do you want to share that sort of transformation, that shift?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I don't think I'd realized how sick I really was until I'd started to recover. So my body had started to reverse the process, and it just is a waiting game for that to either happen or you don't survive. And one of the consultants who had been working with me previously in the week, but was not my consultant on my ward that night, came in. It was about 10 o'clock at night. She came and sat on my bed and she put her hand on my leg and she looked deeply into my eyes and she said, you've been really lucky. And then she looked away and I was like, did she just say what I thought she said? Is she meaning what I think she's meaning? And it was in that moment that I sort of did a deal with the universe. And I was like, okay, if you fully get me out of this, then I will spend the rest of my life being of service. And I didn't know what that looked like. But all I knew was that I didn't want to live a life of regret. I wanted to spend the rest of my life facing my fears of living the life that I was actually being presented with rather than the life that I thought I should be living. And so I came to this place of deep surrender, and I felt this massive shift energetically in my body where I felt peaceful. It was almost like, okay, do with me what you will. You know, universe, you clearly know more than me, and there is going to be a purpose to this pain. And I don't know what that looks like right now. Through the process of healing, I actually went back to work really quite quickly. Once I recovered, I went back to the UK, and the doctors were saying to me, you know, these results are wrong. When I got home, these results can't be right, because otherwise you wouldn't be here. And I was like, well, they are. And they were very keen to keep me at home to heal properly. But I knew from a mental perspective, I needed to go back to work. I had to face everybody at some point. I knew that half the office, because I worked in HR, and that was where you had to send your sick notes into, half the office would know that I just had another miscarriage, and the other half would think I was pregnant because I was still heavily filled with fluid. But I just needed to get that over and done with. And so I went back quite quickly. And once I had fully recovered, I actually flew back to Norway and had a frozen embryo transfer. So completely safe, no drugs involved that were going to upset my body. And I fell pregnant with twins. And I was like, oh my goodness me, this is why it was meant to be this way. I'd always had this romantic notion about what twins would be like. I'm sure people who've had twins are like, you would be crazy. But, you know, I was so excited. And then I lost one of the twins, and then I lost the other twin, and I had another miscarriage. And I was just like, what is going on? You know, like, seriously, what's going on? I thought that, you know, these big traumatic stories have a happy ending. Where's mine? You know, like, so, but in the process of all of that, I made the decision to emigrate over to Australia. So we'd been sort of looking at the visa process and working through the process, but that sort of really cemented it for me. And we got our visas through super quickly. And so at the point that we were supposed to be moving out as a family of 5, I then had to make the decision, do we stay in the UK? Now I've had a miscarriage, and so we've got access to the rest of the frozen embryos, or do we begin a new life in Australia? And we chose to move over to Australia, begin a new life, didn't know anybody, had no jobs to come to, threw everything up in the air. We had about 6 months worth of money to survive on, and everybody thought we were crazy. So it was the middle of the recession in the UK, and we had a beautiful life and great jobs, and if we left, we couldn't necessarily get that back. But it was the best decision of my life. And within 6 weeks of moving out here, I fell pregnant naturally with my eldest daughter, who's just turned 14. And then 4 years later, I had another beautiful little girl who's just turned 10. So the universe did know more than me, Sharna, at every point in time. And I'm proud that I've been able to turn my pain into my purpose and support other women through theirs. But it was a journey, and it took me a long time, I think, to even accept how traumatic it had been and then feel comfortable to share it.
One in 4 pregnancies will result in miscarriage. 1 in 8 women will experience infertility. 1 in 100 women will experience recurrent miscarriage. And 1 in 160 births end in stillbirth. Have you been wanting to make a difference in the lives of women or men who have experienced pregnancy loss because you can see so many suffering in silence, but you just don't know how? Collectively, we can change how bereaved parents can access mental, physical, and emotional support after their experience. There is a lot of women with unhealed trauma, and there is a huge gap in the current support system when it comes to bereaved parents' recovery after loss. There are too many women and men suffering in silence. The Pregnancy Loss Practitioner Certification is a worldwide, one-of-a-kind program that gives you proven methods designed for healthcare professionals, medical staff, midwives, nurses, doulas, birth workers, coaches, and angel parents alike. The Pregnancy Loss Practitioner Certification is bridging that gap. It will give you a proven support structure to follow and education specific to pregnancy loss, created by a loss mum. It is creating more education specifically for loss so that you can enhance your service and become the point of difference. Or you can create the support that you so desperately needed in your healing after loss. This is the next level of growth and expansion you have been searching for. So does this sound like something that you have been searching for? Let's explore this more together. You can head to the episode show notes where you'll find the program application, or direct message me on Instagram and let's open up the conversation in how you can use this education. You have a gift, and I look forward to supporting you and witnessing you bring your gift to the world, healing and transforming women's lives. Yeah, and that's the thing, like in hindsight, you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, I've just been through all of that. But when you're in it, you're like, it can't be this bad. It's like your body just goes into this protective state and you're like, it can't be this bad. And then you get the nurse sit on your bed and tell you how you just scraped through. And you're like, no, that can't be right. And even to have doctors reading your results and going, this doesn't add up. But it took literally you throwing everything in the air, like you said, just that's it, we're done.
Yeah.
I'll leave everything behind, start fresh. And then that was when the universe kicked in and said, no, yeah, this is your time now. You're ready, and we're going to help you now. And you have been able to create so much from your experience, so much support. You have written the book. Do you want to share a little bit about that process and how you are now supporting women through their journey as well?
Yeah, thank you. So my book is called Infertility Saved My Life, Healing PCOS from the Inside Out. And it was a book that took many years to be birthed. And there was a healing process for me, a cathartic process of writing my story. So the first part is my story. The second part is all the tools, techniques, insight, wisdom that I learned the very hard way and share with other people so that they don't need to do it in such a difficult way. I wanted it to be really informative. I didn't want it just to be another story. Yes, that offers hope and inspiration, but I wanted it to be, what did I learn that actually changed my journey? What fundamentally shifted for me? And the point that I realized that it was a mind, body, spirit journey. It wasn't just a physical journey. And when the other things were out of sync, I was asking my body to do something that was pretty crazy. I wasn't listening to the messages my body was giving me. My body was crying out to me at various points in the journey, but I was still pushing through, and I was still expecting and wanting to be able to control the journey because that's how I'd lived my whole life. And I'd had a lot of success in my life. And this was the first time that I couldn't control the outcome, where I literally just had to get to a place of surrender, of just let go. It wasn't giving up, that's different, but I could actually then feel that in my body, and I knew that that was what was playing out. So I talk about that journey, the connection between our mind, body, spirit. I also have a section in there about miscarriage, and for other people, what to say to somebody who's had a miscarriage and what not to say, and the impact that words can have, and just to try and offer other people a bit of support to be able to support their loved ones, because it is a topic that is shrouded in so much silence and stigma and shame, and we don't know how to support people through it. So that was the purpose for writing my book. Was I felt like if just one person reads my story, or one person picks up the second part of the book and knows how to support their partner through this, then my work is done. It really was that simple.
Yeah, and it's so important. I got two things. The
Yeah.
holistic element of healing and listening to your body, not even in healing, just in anything like your fertility journey and in the healing aspects of it as well. But the holistic element of it is so important. It's not just you're thinking about it. It's not just oh, I'm eating something a bit different that's going to help me. It's you got to listen to, like you said, your body is always talking to you.
Mm.
And we get so good at cutting that off, at disconnecting from that and not listening. But when we can actually tune in and listen, we can completely, entirely shift so much for ourselves. And I think that's the key. And like when you were talking, you're like, that's, it's a foundational thing. And we're not taught that. You go to the doctors, they give you like a tablet or send you to a psychologist. And I'm like, well, that's not the answer. Yes, they might be parts of it, but you have to understand that your body is always communicating with you. And if your body maybe doesn't feel safe, if you're in a survival state, it's not going to allow you those processes. It's not going to allow you to go, yeah, sure, fall pregnant when it's feeling potentially threatened, or there's multiple other ways that that presents for your body. But we have to introspect. We have to go deep inside and go, okay, what is truly happening for me? And then make the moves from that place.
Yes.
And the second thing was, I love how you've got the how to support someone going through it, because society can be they can think that they may be doing the right thing, but a lot of what is said is trying to fix the person, trying to fix the situation, the uncomfortability of the situation.
Mm.
And it's not necessarily the right thing to do in that moment, as much as it might feel like the right thing for the other person, the actual one that you're trying to be there for and support. They need something different from you, something different that, you're not probably been told of before. So I love that you've been able to add that part into, because it's so important, so that we can start changing the conversation, so we can start breaking the stigma for now and for generations to come.
Mm.
We need to have more safe spaces for women to be able to talk about their experience so that they can heal. When
Yeah.
society gives us these one-liners, we kind of shut down and we shut our healing down and we push it all back inside because, well, no one understands us. So why should I say that? Why should I talk about my experience? Why should I show that emotion? But if you've got someone on the other side of you that can say, I see you, and have this conversation and open it up in a safe way, then it's inevitable that it will change the conversation. It will change, it'll break the stigma, it'll change everything.
I absolutely agree. And I think there is a lot of bypassing of emotions because we look at the statistics and we get told, this happens so frequently, and don't worry, you'll have another one and you'll fall pregnant again, and, all of that stuff. And we don't then grieve the loss of the life that we had envisaged for ourselves. And we also don't understand when we're saying those things, how much somebody has been through to even get to that point of conception.
Yeah.
And whether that journey is available for somebody moving forward, because if they've just been through their 5th IVF cycle and they've spent all their money and they're emotionally spent, then saying to them, don't worry, you'll have another one, it's just a miscarriage, it's not going to help them on that journey. And what one person needs, it's different for each of us.
Yeah.
And so really asking the questions of people, how can I support you? What do you need right now? And sometimes it's like, I just need a hug. You can't fix it, I can't fix it. But as you beautifully said, it's just about being seen and heard and holding space for somebody. That's often the most healing thing that we can do for each other, and getting out of our own discomfort and really focusing on the other person, and even just owning it and saying, I don't know how you feel, and I don't even know that I have the right words for you right now, but I just want you to know that I'm here. I'm here, whatever that looks like for you. And that those people that did that for me, and the chaplain was one of the only people that did that for me, and she was one of the only people that said, I'm sorry you lost your baby, that actually understood that I saw that miscarriage as my future child. It wasn't just a group of cells. And so I think because of all the wording around what a miscarriage is, we bypass our own emotions and we go, yeah, well, it wasn't really a baby, so I shouldn't really be upset. And then we don't grieve properly, and then energetically we're not in the best space to be able to move forward on our fertility journey, whatever that looks like for us.
Yeah. And yeah, so much yes to what you just said. Even if it's just allowing someone to cry and not telling them, oh, no, 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 you can't cry. Or, which I've heard a lot of mums say when they have brought up the baby, it causes pain, it causes heartache. And I'm like, well, they never forget. They never not going to remember that that was part of their journey. So just talking about it will support them. Yes, it might make them cry, but that's okay. Crying is healing. Allow them that space, be with them, sit with them. And like you said, putting aside all of your own uncomfortableness, judgment, opinions about what should be felt or should be done, and just sit with them and allow them to just go navigate that time. And like you said, sometimes even saying, look, I don't know what to say, but I'm here. And maybe just reaching out for their hand or giving them a hug or, just some form of reassurance. Those are the people, like you said, you don't find them. They're very few and far between that can do that for you, but they're the ones that you remember on your journey because they made you feel seen. They made you feel supported. And it doesn't matter that what they did, it was how they made you feel.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for everything that you have shared with us today. Where can people go to find you, connect with you, talk with you further?
The best way to find me is through my name. So Sarah Willoughby. I have a website, sarahwilloughby.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Sarah Willoughby 2019, Facebook, Instagram, Sarah Willoughby Australia. So yeah, basically my name and you'll find me. I love connecting with people. Please reach out. I offer a free 30-minute consultation, which you can book on my website to have a chat. And I offer fertility coaching, one-on-one fertility coaching. I also do energy healing, both in person and distant healing. And all of those beautiful things come together and I work with people on an individual basis. So it's sort of very intuitively guided what that person needs at each stage of the coaching process. And yeah, just final words are just please know that you're not alone in this, and it may feel like that, but there are so many people out there that want to support you and want to help you to feel seen and heard and understood. It is a really challenging journey. Anything that I can do to support people on their journey, I would love to.
It's so important to note as well, like just because you haven't experienced loss doesn't mean that, even if it's just the infertility stages and going through the IVF cycles but you haven't necessarily had miscarriages or losses, it's still that future that you're navigating, that it is still grief. There is still parts of your body that are needing to be healed so that you can move forward and have healthy pregnancies. You're allowed to, if it feels big and your journey feels big and someone else might be like, downplaying it or dismissing it, but it feels big to you, then it is. So definitely, yeah, seek out that support. Go connect with Sarah because that holistic element is what is missing in most medical settings. And it's such an important part of the healing process and to navigate that path forward. And I love that you bring that energy piece into it as well.
Yeah, well, it was so important for me. That was the game changer, and I felt that energetic shift in my body when I finally came to that place of acceptance that I needed to live the life that I was being given rather than one that I was trying to create. And just to concur with you about grief, grief is such a big part of our journey, regardless of whether we're on a fertility journey or not. And grief through life changes, of which the fertility journey is huge, which is why I'm actually writing a book at the moment about grief through life changes, because of all the topics that I write about. That is the topic that gets the most engagement on every article post that I've ever written since I began my writing career many years ago. That's the one that is really, really important. And I think we underestimate how much we grieve throughout our lives. And so, again, just recognizing that that's where we're at, I think we're able to be a little bit more kind and compassionate with ourselves when we understand that that's maybe what we're going through.
Yeah, it's so important. And, like you said, you might not give yourself permission to actually navigate it or even label it as a grieving process, but it is very much so. And it could be something that could be so seemingly small, but it has this big impact on your body, on you, and then trying to also navigate bigger life things like infertility and losses and all of that. Like it compounds to it, and we do need to give ourselves the permission to acknowledge it as grief and help our bodies and help our physical body, our emotional, our mental body process, our spiritual body process. Thank you so much. I've loved having a chat with you. I could talk to you forever. And I usually do wrap up with like what you wish you knew. I think, maybe before getting on your journey, you did mention that they're not alone. They might feel like they're alone, but they're not. Is there anything else that you wanted to add?
I think I wish I'd been able to be in a space of curiosity rather than judgment about the journey. And I think that comes with age and wisdom and being on the other side of it. But at the time, I wish that I'd realized that it wasn't this tick box activity that I needed to get through, that it wasn't that, it couldn't be that. And that allowing myself just the space to be curious about why these things were happening and try to balance all the rubbish stuff with joy, of prioritizing my own joy in those moments of still going and booking the holiday, of not going, oh, but I might be pregnant, so I can't go on holiday. And there were so many things I put off, and I put my life on hold. And I wish that I had prioritized my own moments of joy. And that might seem counterintuitive. Somebody might be listening to this going, well, I don't feel joyful because I've just had a miscarriage. I don't feel joyful because I've been on this journey for 5 years and I don't know where I'm going to end up, and I don't know whether I'm going to be able to have a baby. But in the meantime, life is still happening. And I really wish that I had lived my life and I'd really had more moments of joy with my son and being more present. And I started that process. I learned meditation, and I'm grateful for that. And that actually saved my life. When I was in ICU, without meditation, I wouldn't be here. So mindset is a big thing as well. I wish that I'd learned about mindset a little bit earlier on in my journey, and just the ability to be present and to be joyful in just the smallest of moments.
It's so beautiful, and it's so true. And again, it's not, we just rush through life and, tick those things off, but it's in slowing down, it's in stepping back, it's in really literally stopping and smelling the flowers, like that we can start to feel alive and not just exist in our life.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for being a part of the What I Wish I Knew After Pregnancy Loss podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed our conversation. Like you said, I could talk to you for hours. I feel like we've just scratched the surface, but I appreciate the opportunity to come and share, and just sending love to everybody.
Yeah, no, I feel like we have just scratched the surface too. Like there are so many different ways that we could just dive in and go further. But I think the episode would be huge.
Yes.
If we were to do that. Maybe we could do another, like a part 2 or something like that.
Yeah, sure.
But I'll make sure that I link all of your details in the show notes so that people can find you, and then you're just one click away.
Thank you.
Thank you to all that have listened in. If this episode was valuable to you, I invite you to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, and I look forward to supporting you on the next episode. Thank you for listening in with me today. I hope you found this episode helpful. If you did, I would absolutely love to hear from you. Take a screenshot of this episode, share it to social media, and tag me at Institute of Healing_PL. I love seeing what is resonating with you right now. If you want to chat further, I invite you to connect with me through Instagram. Head over and follow my Instagram account, send me a DM, and let's open the communication. If you want to know more about how you can be the support for others, head to the show notes and fill out the application form for the Pregnancy Loss Practitioner certification. I want to also note here that what I share within the episodes is not medical advice. If you need further support, please consult your doctor. Thank you again. Much love to you. Be gentle with yourself, and I look forward to supporting you on the next episode.